And now we move on to the next segment of our bulletin, On the Table. Over to you, Otto.
Good evening and welcome back to the show. Now, earlier this week, the government announced the Budi diesel subsidy program to targeted recipients. Now, with that in mind, we would like to delve further into the subject matter on its benefits and repercussions. With us on the line is Dr. Shankaran Nambia. He's the head of research and senior research fellow at the Malaysian Institute of Economic Research, or MIER. Welcome back to the show, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Now, with regards to this latest announcement, in your assessments, how can the recipients benefit from this program?
I think the program has been devised in a way which is sensitive to the needs of the people. I say that because individuals do benefit. If you personally own a diesel vehicle, you benefit from the program. And similarly, if you're a smallholder, you also do benefit. So long as you're not driving a car, a luxury car, and if you fit in within the income bracket, you're entitled to the payoff, and similarly, if you're a smallholder, you're entitled to the 200. So yes, you would have to pay more in terms of the fuel that you are consuming, but at the same time, in order to compensate for the extra cost of the diesel that you are using, you do get a cash compensation. So it takes care of, if you fall within the designated category, you do benefit. And it helps you get over the extra cost that you would have to pay.
Now, Doctor, analysts suggested government should look into subsidies for cooking oil, among others, after the successful implementation of Budi. Are your thoughts on this, Doctor?
Ideally, I think we should be in a world where there are no subsidies. There should, of course, be support for healthcare, education. But I think when it comes to cooking oil, sugar, flour, RON 95, petrol, diesel, I think these should not be subsidized. Recently, we have read reports that the consumption of diesel has gone up manifold. And obviously, if it has gone up that much, obviously people are not using it for their own consumption, because this is something that you wouldn't be able to explain. So there are very severe leakages. And I think the groups that have been targeted aren't the only ones that are benefiting from these subsidies. The subsidies are going to those who can do without the subsidies, and that is costing the government a lot. And given our present fiscal situation, I think we need to be a bit more careful, and we need to make sure that the subsidies, that just the right people, those who are designated, those who deserve the subsidy, are benefiting from the subsidies. So yes, I think, but I wouldn't rush into it. I think you should withdraw these subsidies. You need to go about it in a phased approach. It has to be well considered. It has to be planned. But I think, yes, I think ultimately we would want to go down the path of subsidy rationalization.
I think you mentioned very good points over there when it comes to leakages and also the government spending. Now, moving on to this question over here, would a blanket subsidy effort aid in alleviating the people's cost of living? But you just said earlier on that certain cooking oil should not be subsidized. So your thoughts on that?
I think this is perhaps a separate, but of course a related question. Now, when you withdraw the subsidies, it is likely that there would be a price spike. So we have to be careful to make sure that it's a one-time spike. Or it's a spike that is moderated, that people are not taking advantage of the withdrawal in order to increase prices carelessly or to their benefit. So there has to be careful monitoring of prices. We should make sure that there is no profiteering, that unscrupulous traders are not taking advantage of the situation. True, a blanket subsidy would of course be something that people would like, but there is a huge cost factor that is associated with it. When you spread the subsidies too far and too wide, and they encompass too many income categories, then you find that people who don't really need the subsidy start to enjoy it. And I think the cost of living going up a trifle wouldn't really affect the people, for instance, in T20. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to be careful to make sure that that the right groups enjoy it. And to that end, I don't think that a blanket subsidy is necessarily good. And as I was saying, that there is a cost to the whole thing. That's one point. The other point is, yes, of course, that there are whole sections of the population that have gotten used to subsidies. And it's deeply ingrained in their utility function, how they choose to buy, their sense of well-being, etc. So, which is why earlier on I said it would have to be carefully rolled out, because we have to take into account the way people would react, and which is why I would recommend a phased approach. And you obviously can't have cooking oil, RON 95, diesel subsidies, all rolled out at the same time.
Now, Doctor, is that the reason why the government is trying to get more details from specific people with regards to this diesel subsidy? It will be more specific. This is the reason why that the government is rolling out this subsidy, to be more precise towards a particular group of people?
Yes, I think that is the intention behind PADU. The intention behind PADU is, of course, to collect as much information as possible, to make sure that people who deserve the subsidy are included within the basket, and to make sure that those who probably don't deserve don't fall within the basket. So I think the whole idea of PADU, as you correctly point out, is to make sure that we have as much information as possible so that the program can be delivered precisely.
Now, Doctor, I'd just like to ask this. Now, do you think that providing diesel subsidies or fossil fuel subsidies discourage investments on renewable energy, since the government is moving towards a more renewable energy and sustainable way of living? Wouldn't you think that having subsidies for these fossil fuels would deter in achieving a renewable energy nation?
I think that's why removing the subsidies is a good thing. People have to pay at the market price, and once it's floated, they will have to pay more than they are paying right now. And I suppose that might nudge them into adopting non-fossil fuel forms of energy. And if a program for, let's say, electrical vehicles comes up, if we start to have more electric cars, for instance, I think the transition would be easier. So perhaps, and I suppose this is one of the instruments, removing the subsidies would perhaps be one of the many instruments to get people to move out of the use of fossil fuels into alternate forms of energy, more green energy, perhaps also get people to use public transportation, for instance. The whole idea, I think, will be to be more conscious about the use of fossil fuels.
So, Doctor, you're saying that by providing these subsidies for a specific group of people, that might help them in moving towards a more sustainable way of living. Is that what you're trying to say in this whole, your answer towards this question?
I think that there are some people who would need to use fossil fuel. For instance, a smallholder, he might not be able to have access to green energy or alternate forms of energy in order to carry out his agricultural operations, or at least not yet. So let him not suffer at this point. At this point, he doesn't have access to these alternatives. He needs fossil fuel. So I think it's the responsibility of the government to ensure that he still gets that support. Because if that support were pulled out and he doesn't have a more affordable form of energy at this point, that it wouldn't be fair on him. It would be actually burdensome on him. So at this point, it would, yes, still be necessary for these groups to enjoy the kind of support that they are going to get under the scheme that has to be announced.
Okay, Doctor. Since that we do not have much time left, we just want to know from you, would this budget actually exceed expenditure for government's budget? Before we let you go.
I think we're heading in the right direction. I mean, we have a very tight fiscal space now. The government needs more revenue. It needs to cut down on its expenditure, and by introducing the targeted subsidies, I think the government will be able to save quite a bit, and the government will be able to direct whatever savings it's able to get in order to make sure that we have better healthcare facilities, the education facilities are improved, and so on and so forth. So yes, definitely, targeted subsidies are the way to go.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor, for your time, and thank you so much for coming to the show as well, and for your insights and so clarity. Thank you so much. Now, that wraps up On the Table. It's back to you.